a panel discussion titled Good Governance and Transparency. How do we build trust again in society? We're honored to have the following distinguished panelists: Dato Aliyah Karen, Group CEO of Dialysis, Lifecare International Medical Group; Dato Satinah Saleh, Advisor of the Malaysian Association for Education and Director of Melewar Learning Resources; Dato Haji Jalaldin Hussain, Senior Principal Consultant for Industrial Relations at MEF. The moderator of this panel discussion is Mr. Dim, the head of the School of Professional and Executive Education Development, Asia University. Please join me in welcoming our panelists to the stage.
Okay, a very good afternoon to everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome all of you to this panel discussion session titled Good Governance and Transparency. How do we build trust again in society? I think this is a very interesting topic for all our three panelists to share with all of you. Now, before we dive in, I would like to quickly define some key terms. I think it's important. Let me define some key terms based on the topic. The terms are governance, transparency, and trust. Yeah? Governance, transparency, and trust. So that we will be all on the same page. Okay, let's start with governance. What do we mean by governance? I think the previous speakers have touched on this, but I think I can just recap. Governance refers to the systems, structures, and processes through which decisions are made and implemented. Yeah? So governance ensures accountability, fairness, and effective resource management. So that is governance. Okay? Next, transparency. What do we exactly mean by transparency? Okay? So transparency is the open sharing of information. So that is the basis of transparency. Open sharing of information, ensuring that decisions and actions are clear and accessible. Okay? So transparency promotes accountability and reduces corruption. Okay? So I have defined governance, I have defined transparency, and the last will be trust. What do we mean by trust? Yeah? So trust is the belief that individuals and institutions are reliable, honest, and fair. Yeah? So trust is crucial for legitimacy and maintaining public confidence in governance. Okay, I hope you are able to follow. These are some basic definitions of governance, transparency, and trust. So these concepts are actually deeply interconnected. They are all interconnected. How are they interconnected? So good governance relies on transparency to build trust. Good governance relies on transparency to build trust. And trust strengthens governance systems. I think this is a very good statement so that all of us will be on the same page before we move on with the panelists. So good governance relies on transparency to build trust, and trust strengthens governance systems. Okay? Now with that, let me now introduce our distinguished panelists. Okay, first we have with us here on my left, Dato Dr. Aliyah Karen. So Dato Dr. Aliyah Karen is a visionary leader and advocate for governance, transparency, education, and humanitarian work. Okay? With a doctorate in management and an MBA in human resources, she is a certified trainer specializing in people management and essential skills development. Group CEO of a leading medical facility. She drives corporate restructuring and sustainability reporting. Yeah. A successful entrepreneur, Dato Aliyah. She has founded not one or two, 5 thriving entities. 5 thriving entities, including 2 foundations. She also serves as an adjunct professor at UNITAR International University and holds key roles at University Utara Malaysia and University Putra Malaysia. Recognized as one of Malaysia's top 50 leaders by Talent Corp, Dato Aliyah is a sought-after speaker, mentor, and thought leader dedicated to healthcare, training, diversity, women entrepreneurship, and youth empowerment. So, Dato Dr. Aliyah's profile is available in the program book, of course. So, Dato Aliyah, will you have something to say to the audience?
Hello, I think that's very long. So we'll stick to transparency, trust, and corruption in a while. But nice to meet everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato. Now next in the panel will be Dato Satinah Saleh. So Dato Satinah Saleh is a distinguished education leader with over 30 years of experience in Malaysia's public and private sectors. She holds academic credentials from Loughborough University, UK, University of Melewar, Howard, and the Australian National University. Currently, she is the Director of Melewar Learning Resources, Direct English, a board member of the British International School, Kuala Lumpur, and Managing Director of Alpha Al-Sakov Edu Resources. Her career includes key roles such as Director of the Private Education Division, Head of the Project Management Office for Malaysian Education Blueprint, and Education Consultant at Khazanah National. A former President, now Advisor of the Malaysian Association for Education. She has also been recognized with prestigious awards, including the Women Icons Malaysia Award. A sought-after speaker and mentor, Dato Satinah remains dedicated to education transformation in Malaysia. Dato? Yeah.
Thank you, Philip. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat petang, good afternoon actually. I think you can read about my little bit of my resume in the program. By the way, I am a hardcore educationist. I was a teacher, I was a lecturer, and I worked in the Ministry of Education as senior official. And after all this while, after retiring, and I'm still working for education. I mean, the truth is that I'm still not very happy with the system. I did not do things that I should have done long time ago, and I would like to continue to serve, do a lot of education initiatives if I can, as long as God gave me the life and health. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato. Yeah. Next, the last but not least, Dato Haji Jalaldin Hussain, Senior Principal Consultant Industrial Relations, Malaysian Employers Federation, MEF. Dato Haji Jalaldin Hussain has over 40 years of experience in public service, law, and industrial relations. A law graduate from the University of Malaya, he began his career as a Deputy Public Prosecutor with the Anti-Corruption Agency, before serving in various legal and judicial roles, including magistrate, senior federal counsel, and legal advisor to multiple ministries. In 2006, Dato Jalal was appointed chairman of the Industrial Court Kuala Lumpur, serving until 2014, and later returned as task force chairman in 2018. Since 2021, he has been with the Malaysian Employers Federation, MEF, where he is now a senior principal consultant. His vast experience continues to shape Malaysia's industrial relations landscape. Yeah, over to you, Dato.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to thank all of you for still remaining in this room. Because you are the paling setia. I think I give all of you a hand to show appreciation of your resilience when others have already walked out. So thank you very much. I will speak more on the private sector, not the government sector, though I served the government for 35 years. But since I was in industrial court, I deal with most of the industrial relations, as well as now with MEF. We've also putting in not only views of the employer, but also my experience with the employee, having relations with the union. I hope you will have the time and patience to listen to the three of us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dato Jalal. So I believe all of you are the hardcore supporters of anti-corruption. Give yourself a round of applause. Thank you for being around up until now, like what Dato Jalal has mentioned. And one of the reasons why I read out the profile quite lengthily, so that you know their background, you will know what kind of questions that you can put forward during our interactive session later on. Yeah? Okay, I think we have covered all their profiles. We know who they are and what they do or what they did. Now let me throw the first question to the three panelists. This is an open question. Any of you can just pick up if you want to answer. This question will actually define the problem related to our topic today, good governance and transparency. How do we build trust again in society? Now, the first question is, trust in governance has declined not only nationally but also globally. Yeah. Trust in governance has declined not only nationally but also globally. In your view, our dear panelists, what are the key factors contributing to this erosion of trust? Yeah? So what are the key factors contributing to the erosion of this erosion of trust? Any one of you would like to start?
I start now, so later you will ask. Okay, I think two things that come to my mind when you talk about trust, and I don't think we're going to run very far from everyone's opinion. One, let's face and let's address the elephant in the room. This is political. So I think we have lost. Personally, for me as well, I think it's if you go back 5 years ago, the Sheraton move, I think put a lot of us not trusting the government anymore, not trusting politicians anymore, not trusting a lot of people anymore. Why? Because if you look a year before that or 2 years before that, we all made sure that there was a change of government, there was and we were hoping for a good change, right? So and then you had this political fiasco going on, and in 2020, and then coming forth to 2021, 2022, 2024. Although there was some change, we're still not happy. So at the end of the day, the political trust seems to be something that I think shakes up the country, affecting us as the people, the rakyat of Malaysia. So I think that's coming to mind. Of course, the second thing is that we seem to be also having very weak accountability. And again, that's something that we need. I don't think we want to deny going down that road about weak accountability. 1MDB is a very, very good example, if I were to give you an example, in terms of weak accountability, right? This seems to be running, and there's just so many cases. So even if we talk about, if we talk about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we're looking at the police being very, very busy. Today, police less busy, MACC very busy. Because every day in the newspapers or in the news or everything, MACC seems to be very, very busy. Not so much, it's so much that we are thinking like the MACC is catching more people than the police, right? So these two things, I think, are things that at every coffee shop, we seem to be talking about it. We can't run away from inequality of pay or the economy. Of course, not everything is in our hands, but it does play some part in terms of the trust issue in Malaysia of why we do what we do, or why do people go into, whether it's corruption or taking, things that they're not supposed to take. That plays, the part. And I think with the last one is, I think, are we normalizing? That's a question that I ask very often. Are we normalizing this to be okay? Are we accepting this to be okay? Or are we accepting that this is part and parcel of Malaysia today? So I think that's something that, we all should think about and see what do we want to do next about this. So that's from me.
Yeah, thank you, Dato Aliyah. Dato Satinah, okay.
Thank you. I don't think there's not much of difference between our opinions, basically. We can just put it in different way. After this, I'll be talking about education. So the decline in trust, as we always say, corruption and lack of accountability. We see it openly, I say we see it in the government services as well, public sectors, as well as also private sectors. And then that, not only with that, a lack of transparency. When we want to look at data, for example, I know looking for data in the Ministry of Education or Higher Education, for example, it is a big deal, not easy to get data. So we wonder if we are not transparent in whatever that is available in those ministries, not only in the Ministry of Education but other ministries as well. So how do we get to know the current status of the situation? And then political polarization. We are not running away. So every day we hear this type of things. Guidelines to be done, and then we talk about different religions, which shouldn't be talking anymore at all. Because we have lived in this country, multiracial. Why do you want to talk about agama, each one of us? Even in Islam, there is an ayah there whereby that you have your own religion. Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun. So we have our own religion. We allow that to happen in our country as well. And then weak institutional integrity. Another thing, you have already explained just now, integrity, it is important. And at the same time, I would say suppression of freedom also plays a role actually in whatever that is happening now. And policy failures and also crisis management. Are we able to manage crises that we face in our country? For example, no, I'm not only talking about our country government, we also are talking about institutions as well, whether it is public or private or CSOs or NGOs and so on. And lack of citizen engagement. I think the citizen, they need to be engaged for them to know what is going on. The transparency is the word, the key word that needs to be used. And I would say it's also the global governance failures. So if we want to have this whole thing again, to have a good, the whole thing, actually this role should be played by each one of us. It's not only the government, individuals, parents, communities, and so on. We have to own it for us to move ahead in this country. Thank you.
Yes, Dato.
Sorry, as a lawyer, we always have something different from others. Because if you look at transparency, you have a fully transparent 17-year-old walking in Jalan Tuanku Drama. What happened? Fully transparent. 17-year-old. Because of traffic, massive traffic jam. You have a 70-year-old, fully transparent woman walking into Jalan Tuanku Drama. What happens? So that's why lawyers say it depends on the age. But sometimes people say age does not matter. What matters is what matters it doesn't age. As long as what matters doesn't age is just a number. Now if we look at the question, if you are in Malaysia and you find the index has been there, you are number 51 year after year after year. You ask the Z generation what they say, whatever. This government, that government, all the same. That's our perception. Why is Singapore number 1? We are number 51. People say, don't ask Dato. They got different, you are different. No. I did a survey. I asked a Singaporean, why are you number 1 in the world against corruption? You're top class. What's the answer by a Singaporean? He says, look my friend, We are a small state. We don't have any raw materials. Our only source of income is financial institution. Will anyone in the world invest in Singapore if we are corrupted? You see, they are fighting for survival. They have got a 50-year plan. And what do they say? We cannot afford to have corruption in Singapore because that means the end of Singapore. Nobody will come and invest. Their national interest is what everyone is talking about. The survival of Singapore, the future of Singapore, the responsibility of Singaporeans is to ensure eradication of corruption. What about us in Malaysia? Do we care less? What is our attitude? How do we look at it? I went to a kindergarten in Korea. People ask me, Dato, people go to Korea, go to all the places, why you want to go to kindergarten? So I went to the kindergarten. I look at the kindergarten. He's at 3 years old. They don't bring like us, bring books or whatever. The teacher says, open your computer, open the laptop. Turn on to telephone. Telephone. What is the number one telephone in the world? Samsung lah. Adik pada Samsung. Samsung, then second question, the teacher asks. Samsung is number one. Samsung is number one. Samsung from where? Korea. Korea is number one. You are number one. You are better than the Masakit. You are better than anyone in the world. You are number one. What's your duty? To ensure that Korea remains number one. How they educate their people, how they educate their children, how Singapore train their people to say, we can never say yes to corruption. This is the will of the people. You can have the leaders come and go, but the people are struggling, the people are seeing the survival of Singapore depends on anti-corruption. No tolerance to corruption. We talk about no tolerance to sexual harassment. But how does sexual harassment help to upgrade our economic status, our CPI? But there you see, they make it something which is a realization, which is a national policy, which is a national interest, which is the very interest of every Singaporean to fight corruption. That they have to do, that's why they are number one. But we refuse. We always say, no, we are better, we are this. Look, Singapore and us have got the same legislation, the same laws, the same enforcement agencies. But why they are number one, we are number two? So, kita punya attitude is, buatlah 51 je, bukan 100 pun, ramai lagi bawah kita. So, this is the first foremost thing I see. If you want to really fight, you must imbue in the generation to say you cannot tolerate corruption because your survival of your nation depends on it. No one will come and invest. Nobody will like Singapore. Their dependence on foreign investment is so great. They cannot afford to lose it. And why? Because you look at Singapore, the first and foremost thing that they govern for governance is that they go in detail every financial transaction. Any red flag, stop. They set in all the red flags in their governance. And their transparency is very clear because all accounts must be audited. The moment there is slight deviation, the report must go to the National Bank of Singapore. You don't, then your accounts will be freezed. They will come in and do the investigation. So the fear. And in Singapore, why they fear? Because of the punishment. The moment you are caught for corruption and convicted of corruption, your name is with the Kementerian Sumber Manusia. You will never be employed. So the punishment is not like ours. You go for trial, you take years, year after year, and then at the end of the day, people say, oh, never mind, just put him under house arrest. So, problem solved. So, I mean, if you look at the way things are, but whatever it is, Singapore cannot laugh at us. Because they are in the end also, they put their corrupted fella for house arrest. So, kita tak malulah dia buang apa juga yang result kan. So, for me, that is where you start making it a national thing so that everybody understands. That's why like in industrial relation, the trust and confidence between the worker and the employer must be there. And the trust is where everybody is transparent. You have a governance, you have transparency in every stage. For example, you have collective agreement. In the collective agreement, when you discuss what are the terms and conditions of service and how to improve, everything is transparent. Everything is laid down. How many is, what is the company's profit, what is the loss, what is manageable, what's not manageable, everybody. So those principles of trust and confidence, as it is if you go to the private sector, especially the employer-employee relationship, where is the trust? Nobody trusts anybody. Even if you ask the number one cannot even trust the number two. So this is the standard of proof of trust that we have. Whereas in Singapore, it's totally different. In Singapore, the education system, the employment system, totally different from us. That's why we have to now think out of the box. We have to look at other people and how other people do things, so that we can now compare whether what we have and why our fight against corruption is not moving. It's still there, stagnant. Why? Because the people are not willing to change. They say never mind lah, 51 only kan.
Okay. Thank you to all the three panelists. I think that was a very good start to the discussion, and I can see so much fire in Dato Jalaldin. That's a good sign. So that means our discussion today is going to be very exciting. Of course, from Dato Satinah and Dato Aliyah Karen, from different perspectives, and then we know what they think about the questions that we put forward. Now, I will start asking questions related to your background. Then I will go into some very general questions. So to Dr. Aliyah, from your experience in the healthcare sector, how does transparency impact patient trust and institutional credibility? From your experience in the healthcare sector, how does transparency impact patient trust and institutional credibility?
Thank you, Philip. I think across the board, regardless of what the industry is, let me tell you two things that I strongly believe that one should hold. When we talk about whether it's trust, whether we talk about governance, we talk about transparency, especially transparency, because my area of expertise is in transparency, I will share this with you. I think two things that you want to remember to hold on to, or you want to look out for, is one is the voice on the top. I always believe it starts at the top. So if the top is right, the top is clean in that sense, and not practicing any of these hanky-pankiness, the chances of the organization being clean in that sense as well, I think is, I would say the success rate is so much higher. Why? Because the voice starts on the top. Secondly, I think is the clarity of communications. What does the organization or leaders want? How do you instill these values and integrity into an organization? So for my organization, or rather my industry, is healthcare. We are the ones who were very first to adopt the PDPA. PDPA, as you know, was in 2010. They started this PDPA 15 years ago for the Private Act. Okay, so you have all your Personal Data Protection Act, right? So For patients, that is extremely important. So in case you didn't know, in a medical organization, even if you are the sibling, even if you are the child, if you are not the first person on the list of the patient, as the patient's proxy or the closest to that patient, they only take one name. Anything else that you ask, we cannot give. Okay, so here we then have, the onus is on us to be very, very transparent as much as we can to the public in general. So if you have things like, for example, say something goes wrong. Recently, you've read the news, there were a few, very damaging news. True, not true is different story. Okay, but you do have of cases where false medication or wrong medication was given, the doctor operated without the consent. So you do have all this. So for us in the medical industry especially, we are talking about lives. So it's really crucial for us not just to be transparent, to walk the talk, but to have everything built properly, itemized properly. So you in a hospital environment or in a medical environment, even if you go to a normal clinic, you will see every single detail of the medication given to you. That is the requirement. I think the law has been enforced very strongly on this. So I'm quite glad that in the medical, I won't say 100%, but compared to other industries, I must say, of course, I do hantam other places lah, but when it comes to this, I think we have been doing pretty well simply because, again, the law is in place. It has been practiced. You've got very strong in the event, like what I think Dato mentioned just now, that what happens to you if you break the law sort of thing. So we've got the same thing, right? So you're going to be called up by the MMA board, your doctor's license will be stripped. All these have been put so much fear into it that the hospitals themselves, with whether it's MSQH or JCI standards, we don't follow ISO, but the rest of the standards, I must say that Malaysia is practicing a lot of transparency. Things are put into place. We do have, whether it's itemized building, whether it's clinical charts, and things like that. The only thing that I think we need to improve, or I believe we need to be improved, is our communications. How much of information do we give out there, and how much of accountability we want to take when something goes wrong. Because many a times it is true that there's always some slack in the hospital or something goes wrong. We should not cover that one up. We should be transparent enough to admit, take the brunt of it, and then try and improve or make sure that we improve in terms of our governance and our communications, our credibility. I think that's very important because, again, the emphasis here is patients' lives.
Thank you, Dato. Yeah, when Dato mentioned about data protection, I'm actually very excited. This is not an advertisement. Speed is actually going into data protection training. We are going to offer a certified data protection officer training. So we could be the pioneers in the country venturing into this for the reason that we have the authority on data protection to be with the team. This gentleman, he was the one who actually drafted or crafted PDPA 2010. So we are now with them, and we are going to offer this training soon. Not an advertisement, but it is an advertisement. Okay. Now, moving back to the panel. Of course, Dato Satinah, your question will be related to education. So education is a key pillar in shaping values. Yeah, education is a key pillar in shaping values. How can we integrate governance and integrity principles into early education?
When we talk about early education, I think we are more or less we talk about children from the age of probably could be 2, yeah, up to the primary and secondary school. But early education, I think to integrating governance and integrity principle into early education, that requires actually a holistic approach. Holistic in the sense that it's not just in the school itself. It will embed ethical values, transparency, and accountability in the learning environment. I know that some of the early childcare centers here, they teach their children in the garden, looking at probably at some of the insects and so on. So they teach values there. So how do we go about it? Some of the points that I would like to put forth, actually, first, curriculum integration. Curriculum integration incorporate age-appropriate lesson, meaning to say we have to go to the age, depending on how old the children are, as you mentioned just now, depending on how old. And then we teach them lessons on fairness, how to be fair. We teach them lessons how to be responsible into whatever that they do. And also at the same time, good governance in the context of their age. And also subjects like moral education and as well as social studies. I relate this morning. I was sending my granddaughter to school on the way for my son-in-law to drop me. She is 4-year-old. She wanted to bring her car to the school. And so I told her, I said, you're not supposed to bring it because that is a rule of law. What is rule to me? She said, rule actually is we're supposed to follow. This is things that we cannot really, at your age, you cannot understand. So that indirectly, I thought I was teaching her a lesson on the rules of law, what to do. And the second one would be the roles, the role models and leadership. Where do we get this? Definitely from school, the principal, the teachers, and also at the same time, we are also looking at those around the school. Could be the gardeners, could be the chef, the cook in the school, yeah? So they need to give actually a behavior that will give an example to our children. If they are rough, the children will be rough as well, yeah? And then interactive learning. What is interactive learning? You use storytelling, role-playing. I think this is happening in early childcare education. I know that because of my grandchildren. Now I'm not talking about children anymore, my grandchildren, yeah? And then we also should have school policies and environment. School policies is important, just like our current situation in our country. We have to establish a very clear rules, fairness, and anti-corruption scenario whereby they understand you're not supposed to bribe anyone, or of course we give gift to them sometimes, so that is different, and ethical behavior, saying thank you and so on. And then parental and community engagement. This is one of the most important things. I always believe when you send your children to school, from whatever time until evening or afternoon, it doesn't mean that the school is responsible towards the behavior of your children. To start with, they are at home for many more hours. Parents, mother, father, grandmother, and so on, they are responsible in molding the children. Educate parents. We should educate parents indirectly, probably, you know, on the importance of integrity, the importance of transparency. If they make mistake, tell them what happened to them, yeah? And then allow the students to participate. The participation of students in whatever activities regarding to encourage them on leadership, for example, counseling indirectly among themselves. These are very important. Indirectly, they have the integrity elements in that. And the last one that I would like to mention is digital citizenship and media literacy. We cannot run away nowadays. Children, they are more comfortable with, you know, with phone, with tablets and so on. I don't know, my 4-month-old grandson, the moment I take photo, is trying to touch and put his finger. Where did he learn? So we need to teach them actually the appropriate way of using those gadgets, you know, so that they will not abuse them indirectly. Kids are too smart nowadays. They are not like my time. I don't know about your time. My time, you know, whereby that these are things that it's not familiar. So allow them to be responsible, navigate their information responsibly, understand misinformation, and develop ethical digital habits. I think that is important for them. You know, by embedding all these principles early, when they are still small, inshallah, God willing, you know, they will be able to be educated on integrity, as mentioned by Dato just now, Dato Aliyah. I think these are lessons for them from the very beginning itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato. Yeah, speaking about digital devices, actually, in fact, I told my team, it is an embarrassment for me to hold so many cards here. by right I should be using tablets and all that. Yeah. So I think that's say something about what Dato has just highlighted. Yeah. The timekeeper is showing 5 minutes, but I think we can be more flexible. We shorten the question and answer session, but because I think we have more to share here. Okay, to Dato Haji Jalaldin, from an industrial relations perspective, how can companies ensure good governance in employer-employee relationship? Dato, please.
Thank you. I fully agree with the two panel. I cannot be fair because I'm done. Okay, jokes aside, you look at Europe now is now reviewing the work from home policy. Just because the school children are now asking, mother, if you can work from home, why can't I have school from home? So we have to be careful. The problem when you talk about employer-employee, you have all the programs, you have all the trust principle, you have all the certification whatsoever. But that is only employer. What about the employee? How do you gain the employees' trust? Because you ask the employee they will say, all my employers are corrupt. You ask the boss, you see the boss pergi sana, pergi sini, makan angin dan sebagainya, all use companies money. They entertain people to get projects. That is not corruption. That is political donation. So if you look at you want to have trust, that means there must be involvement of the workers. To get the workers to involve, you must get the unions to be involved, so that the unions also will work together with the employer. It is not only employer, but also employee. The persons representing the employees are the trade unions. Now, if we don't get them to be involved with all these corruption policies, then we are losing employer-employee relationship. The most that we talk of the whole morning is that we have this regulation, that regulation, so what? The employees are asking, so what? What is the regulation? How effective is it? When you have courses, ask HR for us. Who attended the courses? Who attended your courses? Neither the top management nor the workers. And these are middle group who has nothing to do with any policy, who cannot decide anything, who just put there an awareness campaign, just like because it is a legal requirement under the sexual harassment 81H that you must have a sexual harassment. But we have not made it compulsory that every company must have an awareness campaign both of employers and also employees together to say what is the law on corruption, what are the rules and regulations, what are the red flags that I'm supposed to do, and what would be, as far as like Singapore is saying, they even go to their workers and tell their workers what would be the effect if you are corrupted. If you are corrupted, you take a bribe and you are supposed to handle a machine. What happens? The life of another worker would be at stake. So they say, look, don't think, because why? We take care of you. We take care of your welfare. We take care of your salary increment. We give you salary. We give you medical benefits. Therefore, there is no need for you to be corrupted. What is the necessity? So this we must imbue within both the employer and the employee. And we must have a joint program of eradication of corruption. Now we have only Section 17A. Now Section 17A talks about whom? Talks about the management, the top management, the responsibility of directors. But what about the workers? Don't they have any imbue? That is why I say we look at Singapore. Singapore has made it a policy and imbue in their workers to say, no, we are not tolerating any corruption. and they have their ways of how they plug in. Like ours, we are still struggling about people who are supposed to known as whistleblowers. But they know. They have all the protection, they have all the laws to cover. And if anyone gives an information which ends at the end arrest of a corrupt fella in Singapore, they are rewarded. But they have their laws whereby these people are protected. For us, we say no. If you go on TV, you go in this is not whistleblower. But in Singapore, we say irrespective of the manner in which the information is supplied, whoever is the whistleblower is going to be protected. So we must have a new policy of engaging everyone, not only the top management, not only having certification for this, certification for that. So companies will only do to get the certification. After that, where is the enforcement? After that, where is the implementation? How many of your workforce understand what the hell is corruption? Where does corruption is? Which are the areas? Who are the fellas? Even in Singapore, they go to the stage of going into your accounts. They will monitor. They monitor every employee. Is there anything that this employee is doing which can be suspect of corruption? So, like in Malaysia, you say you have an inspector who can drive a Honda Accord, but the OSPD can only get a Proton Wira. So, in Singapore, you are monitored. You are monitored for your income. You are monitored for, and especially in Singapore, there is a law that prohibits and make it a crime for political donation. In US, no. In US, you can donate. The lobbyists. In Singapore, you cannot lobby. You lobby and you are being sent to prison. So these are things that we should emphasize. To say that it is work together. We have the employee, and the relevant agencies. We work together, have a national program.
Okay, thank you, Dato. Actually, I have a long list of questions to individual panelists, but I don't think we have time for that. I will just put forward another general question so that any of you would like to pick this up. Yeah. Now, many organizations claim to be transparent, but real transparency is often difficult to measure. How do we ensure that transparency is meaningful and not just a public relations exercise? I think, do you need me to repeat the question? Okay, one more time. Many organizations claim to be transparent, but real transparency is often difficult to measure. How do we ensure that transparency is meaningful and not just a public relations exercise? Anyone up there?
Thank you, Philip. I like to relate it to higher education institution because I'm in the education. Yeah, your question is very much related to the question that I could put it down. Line it up. As I mentioned just now, academic institution can foster this type of transparency and fairness and accountability by having the strategies, the following strategies. First, you have to have a clear policy. That is one of them. That can be also applied generally. And merit-based decision. Whether it is an organization or in the higher education institution or the school or whatever it is, you must establish transparent guidelines for people to understand. For example, for higher education, for admission, for example, what are the guidelines? And for hiring and promotion and for grading and financial management and so on. That is one. Secondly, independent oversight and whistleblower protection. You mentioned about whistleblower. So this is important because we have to conduct regular audits in whatever institution that you mentioned related to your question just now, Philip, to monitor financial and governance practices while providing safe anonymous channels for reporting unethical behavior without fear or retaliation. I think that is the second one. The third one is integrity training and ethical leadership. Require educators or administrators and students to adhere to code of ethics. There must be a code of ethics, supported by ongoing training in integrity, ethics and anti-corruption sort of courses, and leadership roles should be held by individuals committed to ethical governance. Otherwise, they should not be there. And the fourth one, digitalization and automation. Once again, I'm mentioning this. Minimize human interference in administrative tasks by using digital systems for grading, admissions, attendance, tracking, and financial transaction to reduce opportunities for misconduct. Because when human beings are doing, there are so many things on the table, minyak pelincir, we were talking about it just now. So these are the things that can be avoided when we use digital automation. The fifth one, impartial complaint handling and stakeholder engagement. Establish an independent committees to investigate misconduct and enforce disciplinary action if it is necessary, fairly, while we also involve, in the higher education, we involve parents, students, as well as external bodies to come in. And last one, commitment to integrity. Require faculty and administrators to sign integrity pledges. You have to have pledges, whether it is in office as well, to reinforce their responsibility to uphold ethical standards and all institutional operation. I think this is so important. I think this is not something that is indirectly said. You have to make it into rules and regulation. You have to tell them there is no nonsense, as mentioned by you just now. Singapore cannot tolerate this type of thing. In Malaysia, the same thing, whether it's an institution, the government, schools, or higher education institution, this needs to be done so that we know that we are serious about it. And our children will have this type of inculcation of values. I think values are very important. Thank you.
Okay. I think maybe Dato Aliyah. How do we ensure that transparency is meaningful and not just a public relations exercise?
Okay, I can keep it very simple. In addition to whatever Dato Satinah has said, let's remember to be able to differentiate between profit and ethics. Because I think at the end of the day, we are all employees, you're all either working or even if you own a company, if you are able to differentiate between profit and ethics, meaning I'm sure you already know what it means. The word ethics has been emphasized over and over again by Dato Satinah just now, right? So we tend to look at it, and if it's not helping, even whether it's Bursa, whether it's your annual report, you tend to put a lot of emphasis on how good the company is doing, how well the company is doing in terms of profitability. But you're not having an impact reporting, which people like me are pushing forward to say, instead of doing an annual report, do an impact reporting in terms of how ethical is this company? What are you doing right? I think the basic fundamentals that we should all hold on to is that not to sell your soul. Generally, I think you must have this in you, right? If you want to be able to fight corruption, it starts with you. It's not everybody else. It's very easy to point a finger and say the government is like this and the ministers are like that and everybody. But ask yourself, how ethical are you? Or I have to ask myself that as well. So I think you want to hold on to a piece of advice that I would rather give you, or rather to end this with, I would say, don't compromise your values, your beliefs and your integrity. I think if you hold on to your values, beliefs and your integrity, you will actually go a long way, because those are the fundamentals that actually strengthens you against whatever the topic is. From morning to now, you're hearing on corruption, you're hearing on integrity, you're hearing on transparency, you're hearing a lot of policies. Everything can be in place, but if you are not going to walk the talk, if you're going to compromise all these values that you have because of some dollars and cents, whether it's minyak pelincir or whatever hampers that you're going to get, then it defeats the entire purpose of having this entire one-day conversation to talk about corruption and where it starts and how it starts. So again, I think if there's one piece of advice I can leave for you, is to tell you the difference between profit and ethics. I think we have to be very, very clear on that. Yes, we want to have profits in the company, but that does not mean you compromise your values, your integrity, and your beliefs. And if you are in a leadership role where you are probably managers and above, never ever put your employees or your staff in a position where they will need to compromise because of you, right? So don't ask them to do wrong. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say.
Dato?
As judges, we say, I concur. So you don't have to add anything to whatever I say. But as normally, you do add a bit of their judgment. So you concur with their judgment. But in this case, as all we are saying, we're coming to Ramadan. Ramadan is just around the corner. Ramadan teaches us integrity. You can always eat. You can always eat. Nobody is stopping you from eating. But why do you refrain? Because you say God nampak. You have to teach the people, kalau you ambil corruption pun, you ingat masa you ambil corruption tu, Tuhan tertidur. Tuhan buta sekejap. So sometimes people say don't talk of religion. Susah sikit because I was state legal advisor to Kelantan. And I prepared a paper to that school on corruption. And that school accepted that corruption does not mean only to one party. If you cannot give land to UMNO, you cannot also give land to us. So the policy must be clear. Number one, there is no compromise. Number two, you have to tell, you have to train, you have to educate both the workers and the employers as to what is corruption and what is moral turpitude. And like my father told me when I started working, I came to Kuala Lumpur in 1971. I worked as a clerk at the London Electric Academy. The LNN, last time they say LNN was langut naik. Dia pasang tangga, dia tengok dia naik. He says, believe your belief and doubt your doubts. Don't ever doubt your belief or believe your doubts. So we have, if we want to go really against corruption, we must tell these people, look, where does the money end? Does it make you richer? Does it make you more popular? But in the end, we've already seen those who are corrupted and what is the end story. What in the end happens to them. So I think we should, as both have said, emphasize on educating both the employer and the employee.
Okay, I think that is a very interesting quote. I will remember that for life. Believe your belief, doubt your doubt. Don't, again, what's the last one?
Don't ever believe your doubt.
Okay, don't ever believe. Okay, don't ever doubt your belief. Okay, yeah, wonderful. Okay, we are now moving into the final segment. The Q&A is going to be a short one probably, but we still do it. Okay, now before we begin, I would like to remind everyone that this discussion is centered on the topic governance, transparency and trust. So we encourage open dialogue, but at the same time, we ask that all questions and comments remain respectful, non-political, which I know is difficult, and free from the 3 R's, which I know is also difficult. Anyway, our goal is to foster a meaningful conversation to promote understanding and practical solutions to good governance. So please let us know your name and the organization or company you are from before you pose any questions to the panelists. Okay, we will pass the mic around, Nurit, and just any question from the floor. Maybe we can take 2 or 3 before we call it a day. Anyone? Any question? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. No, it's okay. Physical question. I think if you have anything, you can still use the slider. We will try to manage your questions.
First of all, thank you so much for sharing. The sharing was wonderful. I think the highlight of the evening. Let's give that a big hand. Just a simple question. Do you think the rise of misinformation in social media makes it very difficult to be transparent? Sorry. And how do we control the misinformation of the social media? Thank you.
I think that is a very relevant question.
I think that's a very interesting question. How do we control? I think there is no way for us to be able to control them, because I think the controlling aspect of it is done by the company itself. But at the end of it, I remember when I'm asked to do some sort of an interview on certain policy and education, I get very, very frightened, because you know why? At the end of it, when the whole thing goes to the boss, the whole thing might be changed. So I always tell them, you want me to answer a certain question, let me write it down. Because you know why? We cannot control them. But one thing that we can do, we need to educate our people. For us, our children, our grandchildren, our officers, like you mentioned just now, our staff, on this aspect of integrity and truth and non-truth. Because every day we read, and I find it very, very irritating. I have to sabar a lot actually, because things they put there basically just to sell the product, to become more popular. But we can't control, but we can only educate and ingrain in our children, in our school, the system, how we can actually educate them, so that they will be able to know the right and the wrong. Thank you.
To add on, very quickly, I think personally, two things. One is common sense. I think we all need to use common sense when we read something and really figure out whether how much is this true or not true. Secondly, I think we all need to stop forwarding messages which we are not privy or not, to the results or to the actual story, or we are not sure and we are very excited to be the first to forward. I think each starts with us again. I think one common sense to that's my mantra, of course, and do not forward unless you're very sure it's very true. That will cut down completely. You can't, erase this about false media or false information on digital, whichever platform that you're referring to, and not get too excited, I think, with whatever you're reading, but rather one, use common sense, and two, don't forward, basically.
Just a final say, I don't want to receive a gag order. No, not to say it's a gag order. The amendment to the Multimedia Act is in the process at the Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara. So we wait for the amendment. The amendment is very clear. Even the PDPA now is already enforced as of 1st January 2025. It's already enforced. But there are certain things which in the multimedia needs to be amended. I do not want to debate because that is for the YPs to do. But it is already in the pipeline. We are going to see the amendment soon. And the amendment, some is commented that it's going to be a gag order. But I believe that the new amendment that is coming makes every person who uses the multimedia more responsible. That there are certain new things. For example, during the Multimedia Act, even the PDPA Act, why it needs to be amended. Last time it was 2010. Now the amendment is 2024. And also the developments in technology. Now they have AI, not Anwar Ibrahim. So AI now, how do you tackle AI? Because AI, you can have anybody's face and with anybody's voice. So how do you prevent that? Because of new technological developments, the Multimedia Act needs to be amended. So please Google and see the amendments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dato. One last question which was put forward here. I think any one of you will take up the question before we wrap up the day. Dear esteemed panelists, what do you believe are the most crucial steps in promoting good governance at the grassroots level? What do you believe are the most crucial steps in promoting good governance at the grassroots level? Maybe Dato' Aliyah.
I think policies and everything is there on paper, black and white. And you don't need to follow it, because obviously we all know many people don't follow it because there are lots of loopholes in this. So for me, I think the basic steps is always a reminder, a constant reminder of saying, do what is right. So I think if you keep reminding whoever, whether it's your team, whether it's on the ground, whether you're writing about it, whether you're talking about it, I think again, I want to go back to basic fundamentals of saying, do what is right. To me, I'm holding on to that. So if you do what is right, I don't think we'll have a major problem on that, and that's the basic thing anyways.
Okay, thank you, Dato. Now, I'm going to sum up what we discussed. In fact, what we discussed throughout the day today. So as we conclude this insightful discussion, one key takeaway is clear. I think we all agree to that. Trust is not given. Trust is not given. It is earned through transparency, accountability, and ethical leadership. I think all the speakers said more or less the same thing. Yeah. So good governance is not just about rules and regulations. It's about our commitment to integrity, responsiveness to the people, and the courage to make difficult but necessary reforms. I think these are all the key takeaways, not only this session, but throughout the day. While the challenges of rebuilding trust are complex, today's conversation or today's conference has shown that progress is possible when government, business or businesses, civil society and individuals work together. So this will be the catalyst for action, reminding us that governance is not just the responsibility of leaders, but every other stakeholder in society. Now, thank you very much to all our esteemed panelists for all your valuable insights and views, and to all of you for being part of this wonderful conversation. Let's continue striving for a more transparent, accountable, and trust-driven future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Penny. Thank you to everyone who participated in these interactive sessions. Let's give ourselves a round of applause.